How are you, Thubten?
I'm well, thank you. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you. Thanks for this book. The last book was amazing. This book is as amazing, if not better. It doesn't have to be better, does it? Handbook for Hard Times. You know, it is such a light read. You know, it's a big, weighty subject, and it's all about meditation. We'll get there in a minute. But for people who don't know you, you've been on the show before, of course. Thank you for coming again. What's it like to be on your own for 9 months in a solo retreat? What is that like?
It's more stressful than you would think. I mean, you would think that going into a retreat is a kind of escape.
Yeah.
Or get away from it all, no phones, no internet. And then you're there with your own mind. So the first retreat I did was 9 months. Then I did one that was even longer. It was 4 years.
Yeah.
And in both situations, I was surprised at how difficult it was. Because there you are, backed in a corner with your own thoughts, your own emotions, and you have to start to deal with the things you've maybe been using distraction to run away from. So even as a monk, you can use distraction. You know, you get involved in all kinds of work and teaching and doing other stuff, and you don't really look at yourself. And in retreat, that's when you get to take a good look.
9 months on your own, solo retreat. I mean, that is something. Give us 3 things you found out about yourself in that particular meditation, that retreat rather.
That was my first retreat. I'd only been a monk for a year. I was very new, and I found out, I think what I found out most in that retreat is how much self-loathing I had.
Yeah.
You know, I went in there and just this voice of you are no good, you're rubbish, you can't do this, became louder and louder and louder and really oppressive. And for me, it's always been a process of learning to, well, first of all, you start trying to push that voice away. You try and just push your pain away. And for me, it's always been a process of learning how to meet that with compassion and how to be okay with that. But it's really difficult at first.
Let's just get straight into that now that you've mentioned it. So we all experience discomfort, but the distress is in trying to push away the discomfort. Discomfort is natural, but we bring on the distress ourselves by trying to push this thing away. And it's that exhausting, redundant, ultimately, reaction that is our downfall.
Yeah. In my book, I give a quote from Carl Jung, who said, what you resist persists.
Yeah.
So that is the problem, is that there's pain and discomfort, and then on top of that, there's our resistance, our emotional reactions to the pain and discomfort. How would it feel just to experience it directly without that filter of resistance? It would be very different.
Yeah, and not only does that which you resist persist, it actually grows.
Yeah.
You're holding a magnifying glass over it, and
Yeah.
you think you're doing the opposite, but you're not.
And that's kind of how we're living our lives. We're chasing pleasure and running away from displeasure, and the chase just gets more and the running away gets more. Until we stop and sit and take a look, we're always on this kind of running towards and running away from.
It's funny, isn't it? Because, you know, as we pursue pleasure, and you are what you pursue and all this kind of stuff, the discomfort is in the car park doing push-ups waiting for us to return, because it's just going to stay there, isn't it? It doesn't go anywhere.
It's a habit. If we have a habit of resistance, there's always going to be something there to resist.
Yeah.
Until we look at the habit, you see, we keep looking at the things we're resisting.
Yeah.
But meditation is where you turn around and look at the resistor. Until we do that, there'll always be something.
Because then you talk about this Rangan Chatterjee. By the way, Rangan, if you're listening, thanks so much for having Thubten on your podcast, because that's why he's now on the show. And thank you for giving me your annotated book that you used to research and interview. I really love you for that. I'll see you at the weekend. Can't wait to see you. But speaking to that, what Rangan said on his podcast, and I got to give this to him, is that sometimes the discomfort does disappear for a while, but we then have to create more discomfort because we become addicted to pushing this thing away. We practice, or we become what we practice, almost.
Yeah, I think we get addicted to the resistance and the distraction. And I think also, I mean, we know that we're living in a culture now which piles the distraction on us. There's this completely invasive nature to information now. We've got our phones, we've got everything going on that is sort of invading us with messaging that tells us, be happy, don't be unhappy, you're not good enough, all of that. So we're just being constantly conditioned like that.
Yeah, and then comes an advert 5 seconds later.
And the advert tells
you might need this.
And you might need this because you're not good enough without it.
Yeah. So we talked about the 9-month solo retreat, and then there was the 4-year group retreat. So I mean, they're pretty, you think, okay, 4 years retreat with some other people, 9 years on my own. pretty even Stevens, one would imagine, in a way, you know. But you found the 4-year retreat harder than the 9-month retreat.
Well, it's longer, and it is a group retreat, but you're alone a lot. And during the second year, you take a vow of silence for 5 or 6 months.
What?
You are very much alone in there, in your room, meditating all day, and it really is you and your mind, and there is nowhere else to turn but inside and to look at what's going on. And to somehow work with that, otherwise it gets you.
Okay, not saying anything out loud for 6 months. Walk us through that.
By the time you do that, you've already been in retreat for a year and a half, so you're kind of ready for the silence. You want to go deeper. You
That's just the start
and don't you find that the thought of something is much worse than the thing itself? So the thought of doing 5 or 6 months silence is just impossible. And then when you do it, you just do it. I think we're stronger than we think, you know?
Yeah,
we can do more
I
than we
get
think.
it. I get it. Of course. Rachel.
You've done the 9 months, did the 4 years. Do you see another one coming for you in the future?
I'd like to. I'd like to do more retreat. At the moment, I'm very much in a phase of writing and giving like talks and classes. That's what I do at the moment. Who knows in the future? I'd like to do maybe shorter retreats on my own. Maybe every winter do a short retreat. I think retreat's a very valuable thing, but I also don't want people to think, oh, that's what you have to do.
No, don't worry, we'll get there. But I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, it's a way. Maybe it suits people who are a bit extreme.
Yeah,
I'm an extreme kind of person, and so for me, I was extremely wild before I was a monk.
You really were wild. You left nothing on the pitch, did you?
No, I mean, I was
literally. Didn't you go to bed for like 4 months after that?
I was very ill. I had a major burnout, and that's what turned me into a monk. Was I had brought myself to my knees with wild living and also horrible amounts of mental suffering that I didn't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
And I became a monk, which is quite an extreme move, but I was only going to do it for a year. That was the plan. Then, of course, I stayed. So then with my extreme character, going into these deep retreats kind of suits me. But I was quite surprised at how hard they were.
He is the ultra athlete of retreats.
Well, I mean, I suppose, you say you never think you could do it, and then you do it, and you're just doing it. I mean, the idea of not speaking for 6 months, I actually want to make a vassal-shaped hole in that door, but I suppose you don't talk for a minute, and then it's another minute, and it's like running a 100-mile race. You're
Very
just
similar, I think.
You're running that. You're in the moment that you're in.
And also you're doing a lot of meditation. You're not just stuck in a room silent. You're meditating, so you have this urge that you want to go deeper and you want to be less distracted because you really want to start to understand your mind.
Okay, so Thubten will get us to meditation before this conversation's over, I promise. But before that, more just intriguing stuff from an observational point of view. The 4-year meditation, this is so interesting, this bit. The 4-year meditation that Thubten went on was at a particular time during which we all became seduced and hypnotized by the smartphone. So basically, when Thubten went into this 4-year retreat, we weren't looking at our phones. We had mobile phones and we could text and stuff like that. But the 4 years that he was there, you came out and it was a different world, wasn't it? Just tell us about that, because you didn't see. We were all sort of sautéed. We were slow boiled, weren't we, into it? But you left one world and you came back into a different world.
Yeah, it was quite a shock. I was on this Scottish island, and no internet, nothing, in retreat, and then I come back to London and everything has changed. As you say, during those 4 years, there was a huge speeding up in technology.
What years were they?
2005 to 2009. So the smartphone revolution, social media, all of that, YouTube, it all happened in one go.
BlackBerry sales peaked in 2007. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's where we were.
I came out of that retreat, arrived in London. First of all, everybody's got these huge phones and their faces are buried in it. I thought I'd landed in some kind of zombie apocalypse.
Unbelievable.
Everybody's wandering around with their face buried in a phone. And just the speed of things really shocked me. I was on the tube, going up the escalator, and those little ads on the side are all digital moving images. Just that subtle change made me feel a bit nauseous.
You would have felt an acceleration in life anyway coming back from a retreat.
Yeah,
but
anyway.
It was 1,000x.
Exactly. Anyway, it would have felt shocking to the system, but there's this new speed and new kind of level of urgency around information. You have to look at it right now. And also I started to look at how how the information we receive is kind of tinged with a lot of emotional energy around triggering our anxiety, triggering our sense of lack, our sense of loneliness. All of those triggers are embedded in the material we see.
This must have been so frustrating, dare I say, infuriating for you to see. Go, oh no! Look what's happened, and nobody can see it. And it's not our fault for not seeing it. It's not that we're blindfolded or we have earplugs in. It's just you don't know when it's happening to you.
Yeah, we don't see it build up.
Yeah.
So maybe I had a different perspective because of being away and then coming back and seeing the change. And I started to think, what is this doing to people's mental health? Because our brains haven't had time to catch up with that new speed.
Well, then we're not wired for it.
No.
This is the first time in humanity where technology is overwhelmed and will continue to overwhelm our own wiring, because we were better than everything else. Now, we are still better, but not at one particular discipline, and they seem to have got us surrounded where that discipline's concerned.
Yeah, and I think the monetization of it has created information that you can't really trust because you know it's leading you in through a clickbait headline.
But it's so hard because they're at it 24/7.
It's very addictive.
We're amateurs.
The language used is addictive. It gets you into it, and then there's ads, and you're sort of seduced by that. I mean, I'm not here to bash technology. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's a bit like we don't. With food, we wouldn't just overeat all the time.
No, cars are great as long as you don't drive into people on purpose.
And with technology, maybe we need a bit more discipline in how we use it to protect ourselves.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like smoking, isn't it? Smoking 50, 60, 70 years ago. Right, that's enough of that. Let's talk about this Handbook for Hard Times. Okay, so it is a handbook. It is a playbook on how to meditate. It's so simple. At the end of every chapter is a meditation practice. Honestly, if you've never ever done it before, this could be your key to the magic, or your keys to the magic kingdom. You now want us all to meditate for 10 to 15 minutes a day because you know the magic within. I meditate twice a day. You meditate a lot more than I do. We know the benefits of it. Can you give the sexiest sell ever to try and get people over the line, please, Thubten?
I think many people are interested in meditation, but they're scared to try because they've tried it and they found it really difficult. And why did they find it difficult? Because they thought they were supposed to sit there and clear their mind. So they sit there and you try and stop thinking, and of course it's completely crazy because the more you try to push away those thoughts, the louder they shout. So then the meditation becomes like a battleground and nobody wants to do it. It's actually much easier than you think. It's about being focused and being present, but the thoughts and emotions that come up are really useful because they make you stronger.
Yeah, they are the weights on the bar in the gym.
They are.
Distraction is your friend.
It absolutely is, because the whole point is to keep coming back into the meditation from distraction. Every time you come back to your breath or whatever technique you're using, you get strong. So that means you have to have somewhere to come back from.
Yeah.
The thought that took you away is the very thing that brings you back. Therefore, it makes you stronger, not weaker.
And the louder the thoughts come whilst you're attempting to meditate, the better you're getting, because the more desperate they are, because they have to turn up their volume. And they get louder just before they become quieter.
I think that they are friends, not enemies. Yeah. I think they are the thoughts that come up are helping us to deepen our mindfulness, our awareness. Also, that's just the first stage, coming back to the breath. But eventually, the meditator learns to be the observer of the thoughts. And once you can learn to just observe, you can go deeper. And then the thoughts and emotions, particularly suffering, can become the meditation. I mean, that's what my book is about, is how to lean into pain and lean into discomfort. So you're not trying to get rid of anything, you're working with it.
And you work with it, and if you don't resist it, as you say, you combine forces with it, you realize it's all the best energy that you could ever wish for, having a different kind of day. And once you understand it, and once you hear it, and once you shake it by the hand or hold it by the hand, and you go for a little walk or a wander together, it melts away, which is what you always use that phrase, it melts away. And, we are not thinking, we have thoughts. You know, when people say, oh, you're angry, you're not angry, you're having anger. And if you can look at everything from a point of possession as opposed to being encumbered by it or inhabited by it, that's when you get the separation, the grace and the space that you need to just take a breath. Why do we always use our breath?
Well, breath is one thing. And in my book, I give lots of options. Breath is the easiest because it's completely portable.
Yeah.
It goes with you everywhere. But the main point is that when you're focusing on one of your senses, such as your breath, you're using a different part of your brain to the part that thinks and ruminates. And they are competing brain areas. Only one can be active at the same time. So the breath gives you somewhere to come back to, which makes you present. But that's not the aim. The aim is not just to become really good at breathing. It's simply a technique to get you to be less invested in your own storyline.
Yeah.
And once you can learn to let go of the stories, you can work with the feelings directly, and that's when the real work starts.
Now everybody's thinking, you must be really good at meditating, and you are really good at meditating, but it can come back to bite you at any point. You can fall off the bus at any point or fall off your perch at any point. You too are distracted all the time. You say this and you welcome that distraction. And not only that, you are not an enlightened being.
No.
How close have you been? Have you snuck a glimpse of enlightenment?
Not at all.
Oh, come on, Thubten. Jeez. 30 years of meditating. What hope is there for the rest of us?
I'm here to disappoint you. I'm definitely happier than I was. And
Yeah.
I have much stronger ability to deal with the suffering I experienced than I used to. So for me, the big turning point was in that 4-year retreat. The first 2 years, I was really suffering with horrendous amounts of anxiety and depression and kind of oscillating between the two. And what changed for me, which has become the kind of birth of this book, is how to move into those feelings without pushing them away and to give that part of myself compassion.
Yeah.
I used to really, really dislike myself.
I know.
And now there's much more of a sense of self-acceptance, which to me is a life changer.
Within the emotion is energy. It's our energy. It's us. And if you push that away, you're pushing away your energy, which is why you become so exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the emotions and thoughts are part of us. They're not to be pushed away, but we need to make friends with them. In a way, we need to be in the driving seat rather than being driven.
Yeah.
So meditation helps us to gain more power over ourselves, but it's not about getting rid of anything. It's about working with it. I always try and think of the example of rotten vegetables that you turn into compost. You don't chuck them away. You make your fields grow. Yeah. So the worst parts of ourselves, the parts that we reject,
the smelliest parts,
the bits we're ashamed of, the bits we can't stand, those are the juicy parts that can help our meditation
That's where
grow.
the nutrition is, isn't it? That's
Exactly.
where the gold is.
Exactly.
All the chapters have different titles. So Hard Times, Fearless Living, Meditation, Emotions, just talked about those, The Observer, Acceptance, Compassion, Forgiveness, Sickness and Courage. If you had to pick one of your children there to talk about, would it be acceptance?
I think acceptance is the key. And I always thought, because my teachers always used to say you need to accept, and I thought that means, you have to kind of put up with it, like grim resignation. I didn't realize until later that acceptance means embracing this moment with love, with compassion, making friends with your reality, being okay with yourself. It's a much more dynamic process than just sitting back and being passive.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with this with emotional pain, but also physical pain. So I wrote most of this book while having COVID and long COVID and being very ill. And these techniques really saved me because I found ways to be with the sensations in my body and be okay with that.
Yeah, acceptance is not acknowledgement. You don't acknowledge an invitation, you accept an invitation.
Yeah.
You don't. Universities don't acknowledge students; they accept students.
There's a welcoming.
It's different, isn't it?
It's welcoming.
It's a welcoming in.
Yeah.
Come in.
And you might think, if I welcome my pain, surely it will get stronger. But of course, it's the opposite. Because what you resist persists.
We have like a minute left. You got to buy the book, everyone. Handbook for Hard Times, and just get into Thubten. Get into his world. Why wouldn't you? Get into his wonder. Just give us anything you want. Give us a minute of anything you want. It's up to you.
Well, I just think that we're living in times when we're so conditioned to you have to be happy. We're not even sure what that happiness is. I mean, is it in material things? Is it relationships? What is it? And it always feels so elusive. And I think that this has made us more frightened of discomfort. So I think we're so obsessed with feeling comfortable all the time that the tiniest discomfort completely freaks us out. And I called the book's called Handbook for Hard Times, but the subtitle is A Monk's Guide to Fearless Living. And I think it's very powerful if you can learn to work with fear and go through it and become fearless. How would it feel to be in these challenging times, but to be fearless, to be strong? It's not about being passive or switching off. It's about being able to face your reality with courage, with interest, with curiosity, and with compassion. That's what we need more than ever. We're so connected and so disconnected, aren't we? If we can learn to love others unconditionally and to train that muscle, the muscle of love, unconditional love, that would make the world a much better place, wouldn't it?
It's a great position to be in, and you can just do it from a bit of meditation. The great thing about meditation is the first glimpse you have of what it can provide and fuel you with and arm you with on a daily basis means that you know how it feels and you know that it exists. And then the more you meditate purposefully twice a day, once a day, hopefully twice a day in the morning and the evening, it's like when somebody takes the stabilizers off your bike. One time in the middle of the day when you're not meditating, it will come and help you out because you have flexed that muscle.
Absolutely.
And that is a gasp moment. The first time it happened to me, I went, oh my goodness me, that's because I meditate. I just did that because I just didn't react because I meditate.
Well, it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym, it's not that your muscles then deflate when you leave the gym.
Exactly.
They go with you. And the other thing about meditation is it's not only about sitting down, doing the breathing or whatever, it's those moments. I talk about micro moments of mindfulness. You know, you're driving your car, you're stuck in traffic, you're standing in a queue, you're sitting behind your desk. You can take a moment to be present, and that can become a habit. It's like you drop little drops of mindfulness throughout the day, keep you one step ahead of the suffering.
If you are going to use your phone for anything, set the alarm.
Why not?
Once every hour.
Make the phone work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it should do, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be the other way around. We've got to finish now. Very quickly before you go, there used to be that advert for Persil. Do you remember that advert for Persil? They used to knock on the door, the Persil challenge, and they used to give you some Persil for your old washing powder and come back a week later. Then they would offer you like loads of boxes of your old washing powder back or one more box of Persil. Everybody took the Persil. The same has been proven by scientists for 4 or 5 days of meditation, hasn't it? You may not notice yourself, but they've done neuro scans,
MRI scans, EEG.
And they say within 3 or 4 days,
yes,
even though it's amateur meditation, there's a change in the pattern of the brain.
10 minutes a day after 4 days, you can see difference in a scanner.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. How did you know?
What did you get a monk for his birthday?
I don't know. Put me on the radio.
Okay. Buy his book. All the money goes somewhere very worthwhile. Handbook for Hard Times, A Monk's Guide to Fearless Living by the brilliant Thubten, Gelong Thubten. Thank you very much indeed.